Let's kick this off. I'm so excited to have Maryli Tiemann here today.
I'm glad to be here.
Yeah. So you've lived in the Mid-Coast since the early 70s.
Yes,
Mhm.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. I actually moved. I grew up in Michigan, actually Flint, Michigan.
Flint, Michigan, yeah.
Mhm. Notorious now for other reasons than
Yes.
automobiles.
Yeah. Make movies about it.
Yeah. So, yeah, Michael Moore, it was quite something, is quite something. Anyway, moved from Michigan, came to Maine in 1971 into a little town called Corinna, Maine,
sure.
which is north of Newport.
Yeah.
And when I moved there, it was with a group of people who were part of a community in Cambridge, Massachusetts. And I was happy there, but I wasn't teaching high school. I got a teaching job in a K-5 elementary school in Parkman.
Parkman,
Maine.
Maine.
Yeah.
Where's Parkman, Maine?
Up by Abbott,
Okay.
west of Guilford.
Yeah, yeah.
Really little community.
Remote.
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
We'll call it remote. Yeah.
Okay. And and I loved it, but it wasn't. Well, I made $3,600 a year, and that was including summer work.
Wow.
I know.
Yeah.
I know.
1971.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I just really wanted to teach high school students. And so I looked on the state website. Well, it wasn't a website then. What would it have been?
What would it have been in 71?
I think you had to write to the State Department and they let you know what positions were open. And so we're talking 73, 50 years ago.
50 years ago.
And there was this position open in Bath, Maine. And it was kind of everything I'd ever dreamed about. My mom used to say, be careful what you wished for because it might come true.
Yes.
And there it was. And off I went. And it was so brilliant to interview with then Dick Tyler and recently departed Rich McGuire. Ooh. Two great men.
Yes.
Really great men.
Yes.
And I got the job. And little did I know that I was walking into a family. I thought I was getting a teaching job. It was great. Those were great days and a great time to begin. I'd been teaching in Illinois outside of Chicago. And then I was the team director of the Boston YWCA, working in South Boston in the D Street Housing Project.
Wow.
But I could see that what I wanted was that everyday experience of being with young people.
Where did that come from?
My brothers.
Your brothers? Yeah.
I have two younger brothers, one who is 8 years younger and one who's 6 years younger. Now we're all older.
Now the age just blends.
Oh, isn't it wonderful?
It is wonderful,
I
yeah.
just love it.
Yeah.
They have been, little did they know how much they taught me.
Because you were the older sister.
I was the older sister.
Yeah.
So, and they probably think that, I taught them. I don't really think they think that. But they gave me humor. They gave me an appreciation for a kind of male perspective. I remember in Flint, we had a little Cape Cod house, and they had moved upstairs into the bigger bedroom. And they were both really, really, really thin at the time. You know how kids can be, especially growing kids.
Beanpoles. Yeah.
Beanpoles, right. And at one point, I was taking care of them in the summer, and they came bounding down the stairs in their bathing suits. And in that look, that kind of beanpole with a bathing suit. And I said, are you guys going to the Davises swimming? And Robbie looked at me and said, no, Maryli, we're going to be in a beauty contest. So, I was ready to teach high school with those two. Oh, goodness.
Great.
Yeah.
So you taught at Morse. You have some education, or you taught at Bowdoin College some too.
Yeah,
is that right?
yeah. Yeah, it's interesting what happened. Oh, God. Excuse me, but I've become an older woman, and I need to constantly dab my nose.
Well, I'm right there with you.
Are you?
I've had it since I was a young man.
Did you really?
I think it's an inherited trait amongst my family members, and some of them, anyways, on one side or the other. And I constantly get the papa, papa, and that's the cue. My nose is running.
And so I actually had dermatological surgery on my nose and my cheek. I looked rather like still do a little bit like a pirate, What happened, matey?
We may go there later then.
But ever since then, my nose is just constantly running. Mm-hmm. So anyway, we were talking about
Bowdoin College.
Yeah. Okay. So taught at Morse, left, came back, and so we're now in the year 2000.
Okay.
And the state of Maine came up with the idea of having it so that all teachers would be fingerprinted. Mm-hmm. So my husband, David Tiemann.
Yes. Teacher.
Yeah.
Yes. You met at Morse High School.
We did. We were high school sweethearts.
High school sweethearts.
Of a different kind.
I remember that. It was so wonderful.
So what happened was he taught social studies. Mm-hmm. And when this law came down, which essentially said that all teachers in the state had to be given a criminal background check to make sure we weren't pedophiles. And to do this, we had to be fingerprinted. It wasn't just a background check. It was a full criminal background check with fingerprinting. And David came to me and said, I can't do this. I teach civics. I teach social studies. Essentially, this is a violation of civil rights, the way that this is written and what's being asked. And, if it were just a background check, like you'd get to buy a gun.
Sure.
Fine. And so I said, that's okay. Don't worry about it. We'll carry on. Our son, Joe, was 13 at the time. I said, I'll stay. We'll have health insurance. We'll have an income. Be okay. Fast forward the little green card, or maybe it was blue. Don't remember.
You would get a card having been fingerprinted.
In the mailbox, you got a card saying that it was going to have a criminal background check. And I remember vividly looking at the card and looking at that thing that said criminal background check. And I thought, no, this is wrong. I'd been thinking about the law.
Was this after you went through the background check?
No.
Or this was like to get the process started?
Correct.
Okay.
Everybody got it.
Yeah, the awakening came when you were the reality of, okay, I'm going to do this or I'm not going to do this. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And there's so much to this story, but there comes a time in your life where you realize that you have to do what you have to do. And it doesn't matter what anybody else does, because you got to live with you.
Right.
And I realized I I knew this law was wrong, and I knew it because there is a point at which, when one is in a case where there is what's the word I want to use? An accusation of misuse, that the young people who are involved are required to step forward, and parents sometimes say, we don't want this for our child, so we'll just settle, and educators are moved on. And there is no criminal background.
An accusation. Yeah.
And I knew this because I knew of a case in my history and teaching, and that was what had happened. And also someone who knew that David wasn't going to do it, who happened to have been a policeman, retired, said to me, you should follow the money here, Maryli. Well, come to find out, there were reasons. The state of Maine was going to make $2 million by increasing their database, their fingerprint database.
The stories behind all the stories in the underground, almost.
And I couldn't. I just couldn't. And honored everyone who could, honored that, honored the fact that, the intent to protect children is paramount. But there were all other things on the other side that just pulled me away. So David and I left teaching. We stepped off a cliff. No job, no health insurance.
How old were you then?
I don't know. Let's see, 2000. I was born in 46. You do the math.
Okay, yeah.
I wasn't a young woman.
Yeah.
And neither of us kind of, I'd always thought I'd teach. And frankly, with all due respect, I am an educator. I can't help it.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, if I see that there's a brick wall, I explain to people, there's a brick wall there. So anyway, he walked right into a job. A neighbor, knew David, knew what a fine, intelligent man he was.
Energetic, ball of fire.
Bingo, said.
Full of life and vinegar and ready to go.
Yeah. And ironically, he ended up in a job where he taught people how to use a computer program. I knew more about computers than David did. But the talent that he has is he knows how to pass on the information without being condescending. And this is tough with computers. It was especially tough in 2000 because there were all these older people, not elders, who had to learn how to use these programs and were struggling, and he was great at it. I kind of bopped around. I cobbled jobs together. I worked at Sweetser in an education department. The people at St. Joseph's College hired me to work in their education department. And then a friend at Bowdoin, who was a dean there, hired me to be in their education department. So there I was.
Yeah, right across the street, almost.
Right down the street.
Right down the street, yeah.
And it was great. And I got to teach people who are now teaching at Morse High School.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, really?
Yeah.
Bree Candlin, who is a fine social studies teacher, was among my first students at Bowdoin. Ken Templeton, who's now in North Carolina, teaching at a performing arts middle school. It's just great opportunities that I never thought I'd have of teaching at the college level. So let me finish the story because it gets pretty amazing.
Yeah.
It goes back to be careful what you wish for because it might come true. I said to the woman who had hired me at Bowdoin, really loved this. And she actually moved me into the environmental studies department where I got to teach people who were going to be teaching environmental studies and work with them. I said to her, you know what I'd really love to do? I'd really love to help college professors understand some more about education because they are really amazing at their subject matter, but not always clued into kind of the path of how to teach. And she laughed and said, oh, fat chance.
They'll never listen to you.
Not only that, but, who? No. So one day I get this phone call from this woman, Liz McCabe Park is her name. And she wanted me to work with her at an organization called Maine Campus Compact. Campus Compact was born out of a need to help college professors, college and university presidents to meet their civic mission. In the 70s, they realized that they were educating very bright but unengaged citizenry. People who wanted to make money, people who wanted to get power, but who didn't necessarily understand the community structure around them and the reality of the diversity of their community. So, you know about service learning?
No.
So, it's a mode of education where you take whatever it is you're teaching and look around your community and see if you can find the path of what it is you wanted as an outcome by engaging your students to meet a particular issue in the community. For instance, I did it in my speech class when I was teaching at Morse. I completely changed my curriculum and had it so that the students could figure out what mattered to them about their community and then what we could do to begin to make that happen. My memory is, or as my dad used to say, this is the way I like to remember it. They came up with the idea of a skate park. They wanted a place for people, including themselves, to have more access to being able to use
a skate park.
What do you call the things that you're?
Well, there's a ramp there, mini ramp, and
no, the skateboard,
the rails. Oh, the skateboard. Oh, yeah.
They, they were being kicked out of downtown using the sidewalks for obvious reasons.
Yeah. And unwanted in the public
bingo
arena.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Or seemingly unwanted.
Seemingly unwanted, and yet all the features and everything that they're looking for are naturally out there on the sidewalks, on the railings that they could participate in, yet no thank you.
No thank you. We don't want you on Front Street. Right. So we did all kinds of things to go through and figure out how to make that happen. And one of the things that we did was to have the movers and shakers of downtown Bath come in and talk with us, and we talk with them. That's service learning. It's a speech class. Yeah, you can get up and give a speech on how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, but how much more empowerment And real education happens when you actually apply what it is you're learning.
To a cause that you have a passion about.
Bingo.
Yeah.
Bingo.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah, tell me about it. And this was...
That'll make my nose run.
Yeah.
Because I'm convinced tears are connected to your...
Oh, you think so?
Sorry for that.
Well, then we're kind of permanently there.
Running our noses, right.
So anyway, I ended up working for this organization that's trying to help do that at the higher education level. And guess what? I end up teaching college professors.
Do you really?
It was just amazing because, they were thirsty and wise and knew that what we were talking about, they knew the outcome of what we were talking about. Bath now has a skate park.
Right. Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
And I insist that those students paved the way for that, and they may not even know it. And I can see their faces. I can see them.
Oh, yeah. And look at that, Maryli, where that went to, because it's not just the skate park now. It's the whole Midcoast Youth Center where they're feeding kids, they're educating them, they're hopefully going to head into the ability to house them.
No.
It's just it's a miracle.
And they did it.
Yeah, they did
They
it.
did it. But you see, I probably am one of the only people who saw the seed go in the ground. And I knew that something would come out of it. I just had no idea that it would be as beautiful as it is.
Yeah, that's amazing.
I know. I know.
Yeah. So how long were you with the
Maine Campus Compact?
Maine Campus Compact, yeah.
I worked with them until I retired. But I didn't really retire.
I was going to say, wait a minute. Wait a minute.
I do all kinds of stuff. But you just said something a minute ago, about how the tears come and they're closed. And I don't know if you're comfortable about this, but...
Go for it.
But I really want to know about your life experience with something very profound that you and I share. And I know that this is an interview about me, but can we share an interview here?
Well, we can. I've talked about it some.
Have you?
And I'm going to. So, Benjamin. So we're talking about our near-death experience.
Yes, we are.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so mine is coming up on 9 years this August. And the Benjamin, who helps produce this for us,
right,
is the one that was. Oh, here we go.
That's okay.
He was going to be here. I mean, he is here. He was there that day of that event, and if he wasn't there, I wouldn't be here. As well as the woman who happened to be at the beach that day, who, if she wasn't there, he wouldn't have been able to run and get a rescue on the way down to help save me. Although ultimately they weren't needed.
So what happened?
So, one second.
Okay.
So the three of us are going to get together in June, and we're going to discuss. And I haven't really figured out how that's going to go yet. Excuse me, because I just don't know how. I've told it myself many times, but so I haven't done it with them. So two things are going to happen. You mentioned your father used to say that that's the story as I remember it.
No. It's the way I like to remember it.
Yes,
That's how he said it. I love it.
I'm going to add the like to because that's an important piece of it.
It is.
Yeah,
it is.
Because we can make up our own stories. And I think that's important to do as
It
well.
is, yeah.
Yeah. So, 9 years ago almost, I was at the beach surfing with Benjamin, and which we had done many times, and it was early in the morning before the park opens, and I was surfing. I'm not a very good surfer. I go to spend time with him, and I enjoy playing in the water. And I've been very comfortable in the water all my life. I've lived on it, played in it, and so I'm out there surfing, and I'm really not that good at picking out which is a good wave to take or not take. And so usually he'll give me a nod one way or the other, but we were separated a little bit at this point in time, so I'm just doing my best. And I'm on a relatively newer surfboard that it was too small for me. It wasn't right. And yet, I'm convinced in my mind I can do anything with anything.
And you can.
And I can. So I'm paddling into a wave and I'm like, I don't think this is the one. So I go to push my board aside. And then all of a sudden, I'm tumbling in the water like you do.
Mm.
You know, the wave kind of, and you kind of ball up and you're in the washing machine, tumble dry. And then when I think I'm just about to come up, all of a sudden it felt like somebody had hit me in the back of my neck with a bolt of lightning.
Was it the skateboard? The
Probably
surfboard?
was a surfboard that hit me in the back of my neck,
yeah.
or I might have smacked my neck down on the beach.
Okay.
Because it's not very deep inside there. And so I am immediately, I've just got this extreme pain. And I knew right then, right away, that I was in trouble. Or I couldn't move. Couldn't move anything. My eyes were open. I could see the sunlight. In my mind, in the story that I like to remember, I guess we'll say, I could see the horizon. I was just I was almost in a cross. My arms were out. My legs were down. I probably was really being thrashed in the water, but that's how I remember it.
Sure.
Because I was saying to myself, okay, you got 3 options. Hold your breath. Benjamin's going to come, or today's the day you leave and you go to heaven. It was that clear. And if I was going to hold my breath, the next thing I needed to do was I needed to get a little quiver in my chin, meaning that was the first start for me to be able to move. And things.
I get it.
Because, as a football player, we're supposed to be talking about you. We'll get this.
No. We're supposed to have a conversation, right?
So, in football, we used to call them stingers, where you'd get hit. And your neck would snap down, and it would constrict or contract. Nerves would react. It would lock you up right in your shoulders. And it was like, wow, what happened? And then all of a sudden, your chin would start to feel like it was coming back alive, and then everything would just kind of settle down. That's what I expected was going to happen, or I hoped would happen. And again, this is just milliseconds. So the brain is operating on high intensity. So I realized that wasn't going to happen. But I'm conscious. I'm in some state of consciousness, and at this point in time, again, the brain is firing, and I've got thoughts of, okay, today's the day that I'm going to be leaving because Benjamin's probably not going to be here to get me in time. And the 23rd Psalm is playing in stereo in the back of my mind. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. And I skipped right to, yea, though I walk to the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil. And so, I'm reviewing life, and I'm like, I did right. I don't need to make amends. I'm ready for what's coming here. Sad to be moving on, but there was just no question that was going to happen. And so I don't remember opening my mouth, succumbing to, drowning. That happened at some point in time. What I remember then there were 3 things that come to mind. One is I'm up floating. I'm out of my body, and I'm looking down, and it's kind of that movie scene where you look down and you can see somebody floating in the water. And there's a body, there's no wind, there's no waves. It's just quiet and calm, when that's not what's happening. It's a beautiful day, but there are waves and there's wash and things like that. But it's just flat. And the next thing that I saw was Benjamin and this woman who happened to be there that day. Natasha is her name. I watched them as they pulled me out of the water. And then the last thing that I saw was, and this, so that I guess you could say there's some climb or ascension going on in this process. The last thing that I saw was them doing CPR. So I'm again looking down, higher above, and they're doing CPR. I can't hear them yelling. I can't see the waves. It's just calm and peaceful. There's no noise. And then I'm all of a sudden, I'm not there. I'm not there. I'm someplace else. That was totally beautiful. That was, the best way I can describe it is, today is a beautiful spring day with the morning sun in its golden glow, and it's bleeding through the new leaves and the somewhat yellow blue colors that kind of stream through. And that's was my sense at that time. And then as I'm making this, and this time is, I don't know what time is anymore. All of a sudden I recognized that I was not alone. And there was someone else there. And I realized where I was or where I was going. And I don't know if it was Jesus or if it was an angel that was with me, but it was the most peaceful feeling that I've ever had. And for all the reasons that I want to be here, there's that reason that I'm ready. Yeah. So I'm sorry.
No, don't be sorry, Rick. It's really helpful to talk with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So tell me.
So then what? Do you remember anything?
I remember waking up on the beach. So,
and there they were.
There they were. Yes. I remember waking up, opening my eyes, and looking and seeing Benjamin through this. As I'm starting to come to again, and I saw Benjamin, and I realized, I think I'm laying down on the beach and thinking about where I was. Just a blink ago, or how I have no idea how long ago it was, and looking at him and saying, "Did I have an accident? Yeah. Did you do CPR? Yeah. You saved my life." And then,
that's amazing.
I love you, Benjamin.
Yeah, really. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there are people who, like I was telling you about my brothers and all they've taught me,
Yeah.
There are people who save our lives in little ways. And all of those ways really, really matter. But there's something about being able to be alive that sort of adds a whole different perspective to being
alive.
Yeah.
I do think there's being alive, and then there's really being alive.
Oh yeah, I know.
Being totally in the moment. It's so challenging to do that, and that's the beauty of this conversation.
Yes,
is that when you can be there.
Yeah.
Because, it's 9 years now. So I lived in that moment after the accident. I lived in that moment for a very long time, not moments, not days, not months, several years, that moment. And that moment hasn't gone away, yet the world and life can almost take the alive nature of that away to some extent. So, And I think it's not something to forget or walk away from. It's something to embrace and carry on from. And I, every morning when I write out my daily plan, the time that I wake up, which is the same every day, the entry at the end of that hour is "I'm alive" with an exclamation point, because that's what happens. Excuse me.
So
when I wake up, that's what I know.
That you're alive.
That I'm alive.
Yeah.
And what are we going to do today? What are we going to get done today? Who are we going to help today?
Yeah.
Who can we love today? Because that really, when I figured out what had happened, where I was, I needed to know a purpose, that I had a second chance. And by far, what I was given from that, and I've always felt this, but it has just been amplified, is love is all that matters, and love everybody always. If they can't, if you don't feel they're returning the love is not an expectation of any return.
Right.
Yeah.
So from my perspective, it is who you've always been. I just need to share that with you. Like if I see the student Rick Bisson, many years ago, you're still you don't you have that in you. You had that in you.
I've had it all my life. Thank you.
Yeah.
And again, we're talking about me.
It's okay.
You're such a teacher, such a great educator. So I have always had that. And it was, it really, it came from my parents, I believe, but it really came from an inner peace that I have.
Mm-hmm.
And that comes from God above, filling me, when I was 13 years old, I guess. I really said, okay, I get it. I'm yours. And just fill me up. And so when I can keep that emptiness of myself and let it be filled by him, it's just so much easier.
See, and that's who I met.
Yeah.
That young man is who I met first.
Yes.
And that's why it doesn't surprise me at all that you have this sense of purpose.
Mm.
But it isn't an outside sense of purpose. It's who you are.
Well, and that is, I guess, what I have found to be very important. So people would say after the accident, so, wow, how has that changed you? There was no change.
Yeah.
It was affirmation.
Yeah.
That's the word I use,
Yeah.
from did I didn't go through a 180-degree conversion, because I had done that years. Not that I ever had to convert, because I just felt like I was on a path.
Yeah.
But I didn't have that. I had an experience for sure, but it didn't change. It affirmed that I was on the right path, and that I could just all of a sudden I had a greater story that I could share.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew that in addition to loving everybody at the appropriate times, I had to share the story.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it's a little, let me share that. It's a little vulnerable to share because it sounds so kind of crazy.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'll tell you, it was crazy in the beginning because, I couldn't help but tell people. And I tried as best I could, to be appropriate about it. At the same time, it was like, I got to tell everybody. Well, and the other thing too was it was obvious for a while that something had happened because, I was in a neck brace for not that long, really. I mean, supposed to be much longer, but my recovery was quick, and I focused on restoration of my body, and so it wasn't that long. But I had a pretty good scar on the back of my neck and on the back of my head and the back of my neck here, or excuse me, my neck, back, and front. I had some pretty good scars that would cause people to look at me a little bit.
Yeah,
they're funny and say, "What's happened to this guy?" And my neck doesn't bend like it used to.
I get both of those
yes,
things.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's profound. Yeah, my story is wonderfully different than yours, except for the peace piece. So I was it was 47 years ago.
47 years ago. So
I was 30.
You were, yeah.
I was 30. And I had been in Mexico, and I was having really, really severe pains. And people kept saying, well, it's just Montezuma's revenge. And then
where were you in Mexico?
In Mexico City.
Okay.
At this point, I was traveling. I'd been quite around.
Yeah.
At Veracruz. And,
okay.
I liked it a lot.
Did you get to Cuernavaca?
I did not.
Okay.
Yeah. And I don't speak Spanish. Well, I did learn how to say, "Donde es Corte de Baño?"
We all learned that on the plane ride down.
But then people answer you in Spanish, and then you have to fess up. That's all I know.
Yeah.
There's a cool story about that where I ended up in a line, still having to go to the bathroom, and realized as I snuck out of the line to go to the beginning, I was in the line for a gynecological clinic. Anyway, from then on, I just speak English and draw pictures.
Yeah.
So anyway, I was in Mexico, And I knew that something was wrong. So somebody said to me, you should call the American Embassy. So I did, and I explained the situation, and they said, if you really don't speak Spanish, imagine what it's going to be like to try and talk to a doctor. You know, we recommend that you get out of the country. And I said, well, I live in Maine. And they said, well, do you know anybody in California? And I did.
Yeah.
So that's where I flew and went immediately to a doctor who said to me, we're going to have to operate this afternoon. You know, I think you have a cyst on your ovary.
Mm.
So unlike yours, I was under anesthesia.
Mm.
And under anesthesia, and I was floating up onto the ceiling. And, you know, we're talking 1976.
Okay.
And I'd never heard anybody else have this experience. So I was really hesitant to ever tell anybody this story, but you'll see why it ended up being told. There was this incredibly bright light. It just you were talking about a diffused light, sort of early morning light. This was like, you know, that
Brightness,
kind of bright light.
yeah. Shield my eyes. Yeah.
And then no other visual, no color that I remember, but voices. Voices talking. And then at some point, somebody said, what's she doing here? She's not supposed to be here now. Tell her to go back.
Wow.
These were voices.
Did you recognize the voices? No. Okay.
No. But the what's she doing here recognized me. She's not supposed to be here now. Tell her to go back. Okay. End of story until the next morning. I'm in a foreign hospital. I mean, I'm in Santa Cruz, California, in a hospital where I know nobody except this doctor who, you know, we have to operate right now. Later on, he told me peritonitis had set in, and I would have died had they not done this operation. But I'm visited by the anesthesiologist. Now, put that in your head a minute and tell me if you've ever been operated on and then the next day had the anesthesiologist come in and talk with you. My answer is no.
No, they're in, they're out.
Bingo.
Yeah, they've done their job.
He says, no, I'm Dr. And I would like you to tell me if there's anything you remember about the operation.
Really?
So I told him what I'm telling you. And he said, thank you very much. And I said, okay. And he left. And because, you know, I was a kid, you know, 30.
Yeah, 30, yeah.
It never occurred to me then. And because I didn't know anybody else who'd had this experience, it didn't occur to me then to ask him anything.
Why did you ask that question?
Right. Why are you here?
Why are you here?
Right.
Yeah.
It also never occurred to me that what I experienced, somebody else might have experienced. And frankly, I didn't quite trust it.
There is that piece of it where, you know, is this real?
Yeah.
And what is real?
Because it was so
different.
And that whole sense of being out of body. I mean, that's what I describe it as, an out of body
experience.
Obviously near death.
Yes.
I mean, if you put those pieces together. Okay, so then I started years later reading about people who experience this bright light. And I, unlike you, I was given 12 years of Catholic schooling, which never took. I went to church every morning because it's part of the school.
Curriculum. Yeah.
I spent, from the time I was in second grade, actually 10 years of public schooling. I started in 12th grade. In second grade. I was 6, 7 years old. We'd spend, a half an hour every morning essentially meditating, not realizing,
at that age.
Quiet, in a very holy, sacred place, singing in Latin, a mass in Latin. My whole schooling was always in Latin. But I never could quite fit. So very spiritual background without faith. Wanted to. Grew up with friends who fervently to this day have very strong faith. So what's amazing about sharing this experience is that it doesn't matter what you believe. It doesn't matter what you hold on to. That happened.
Yeah. And what I don't know if I'm going the right direction here with where you're headed, but the other thing I would say is that what that taught me, the other important piece is that we will all reach a defining moment in our life. And it's not a defining moment about what job you're going to take or whether you're going to have another child or whether you're going to go to the grocery store or not. The defining moment is, okay, I'm dying. This is it. And that may be when you get a diagnosis of some illness that's potentially terminal. Maybe that's an early invitation, let's say. The real invitation comes when you've all of a sudden been struck with something and you're either in a violent accident or it's the end of an illness. And there is a pause there where you get an invitation to say, how do you want to spend eternity? And I'm convinced there's no such thing as sudden death, that you have this final period of grace where the good Lord above says, you got one last chance. And regardless of how you've lived your life, you can say, I want to spend it in eternity with you in joy and hope and love and peace. Or never mind. Like I've said all along, never mind. But I think that invitation is there right at the very end, regardless of who you are or what you've done. And there's such beauty in that.
And there is, and you can even see it in a totally different way and come to the same conclusion. You can see it as an insight. You use the word invitation. I would use the word insight. An insight about, for me, the oneness of it all. That as long as I see you as other, I see, people who cause me discomfort. That's the way I would see it.
Yeah.
Right? Of course.
Yeah.
The discomfort that I feel from other people. As long as I see them as other, then the insight of the oneness isn't there. We can use different language, but have the same understanding. Your understanding of the invitation of peace would be my understanding of the insight that it's all one. It's all one.
Mm.
That any time in my life I have had challenges, frustration, incredible sorrow or loss. It is not just that.
Mm.
It is so much more to bring me what other people might call wisdom, what I would call insight, or
Awareness.
fitting, awareness, fitting in for the, all those years I didn't get it. It's like, oh yeah, I forgot this. You were mentioning when we began about, times when things don't work, right? Well, for me, that's an opportunity.
Sure.
And maybe, maybe the gift that both of us have been given, for whatever reason, maybe we weren't, when you make bread and it needs to be proved.
Yeah.
Maybe we weren't proved yet.
Yeah, right.
Maybe it's that. Maybe it's that we need to share it with others because that might be helpful for somebody to hear.
Because they haven't proved yet.
Like us.
Like us.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And we understand that, and it's not such a big deal. And once you and I are both on Facebook.
Yeah.
And usually I have a lot of more students who are my Facebook friends.
Sure.
And it's so wonderful to see, them now. And sometimes they're going through struggles. And it's so amazing that we have this way of reaching out to one another that we didn't used to have.
Yeah, to encourage,
to
support.
Goodness,
yes. I just having a conversation with somebody last night about the evil of the internet, or what it's brought to us.
Sure.
But that's the world.
Yeah.
There's evil in the world, and there's good in the world, and it's what we put in it that what makes a difference, or what we allow in from there. So we've just accelerated or expanded the world in which we need to discern what's good and what's bad. And the challenge with the internet is you don't ask for it, it just comes. So you have to be able to filter on a second, something will pop up and you have to change the channel immediately. Yeah. It's just,
It's, and I cherish it. And I cherish, the fact that David and I, through some fluke, end up with this wonderful son, our son Joe. We're able to adopt a child at 8.5 months, who's already on a path. And that we end up being part of that path. Can I tell you what I have learned from this young man? How my life has been enriched. All of you students who've taught me, right from the get-go. I'll give you a quick example. So my first year at Morse, I can't remember how it came up. Oh, students would write journals, and I would write stuff in the journals. And one time, this one young man who, again, the name doesn't matter, right?
Right.
Because we're all one.
Yeah.
He wrote, sometimes I think, he was writing about me in the third person, but knew that I would see it. Sometimes I think she cares too much about what we think and what we feel. Kind of like she's Gumby. And if you push, it's gonna react. And I thought to myself, wow, what right on thing you've just said, because I was pretty new in the business,
Sure.
But it's been like that forever, just forever, learning from when I travel, people I meet have more impact on me than the scenery.
Oh, sure.
You know, and who I am is somebody who, if they understand what I'm saying, we're going to have a conversation.
Right. Yeah.
So,
Yeah. That's fascinating.
So the other thing I wanted to share about with
Yes.
you about this out-of-body experience, Pat Ames, did you ever have her as a teacher?
Sure. Yeah.
Her
She was
dad,
my homeroom teacher and my what?
social studies.
Yeah, but there was a special class.
Global issues?
Global issues.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
That was an awesome class.
I know.
Yeah.
David ended up teaching that.
Oh, yeah.
And because he taught it, we ended up going to the Soviet Union.
Really?
With what? 14 seniors.
Yeah.
At Morse.
Wow.
What
a trip.
Yeah, really. I'd love to get us all back together again sometime.
Yeah, that would be fun.
Anyway, so where were we headed?
You were seeing people. Oh, what you wanted to say about my experience that related?
Oh, yeah. Pat Ames. Dr. Patricia Ames wrote a book about the death of her father, Horace Ames. I think his name was Horace. Huge man, huge heart. And every other organ in his body was shutting down, but not his heart.
Really?
So he kept living. But each night he would have essentially what you and I would experience.
Really?
Have experienced.
Yeah.
He would have an out-of-body experience and he would tell her about it. And she wrote this book. I tried to find it this morning, but I couldn't. But
you have it?
Yeah,
I
do.
Yeah. I'd love to read it, obviously.
But I'm sure her nieces have it too, so I'll find a copy.
Yes.
But knowing that gave me more, the lack of vulnerability would be spunk to say my story and say, it could be that a neurologist would tell us that all that happened was that some spark in our brain.
We had a dream.
Yeah, bing.
Yeah.
But okay, I know people who live like there are nightmares in their lives.
Right.
I'd rather live the dream because I also experience it day to day.
Yes.
I also experience the fact that even if I've done some stupid thing, unintentionally hurting you, there can be a way that you and I can reach an understanding of our humanity.
Sure.
And forgive. That's all forgiveness is.
Reconcile.
Is recognizing that we aren't flawed. We're just human.
Right.
And humans are only human. We are not superhuman.
And what I have in here and what you have in there, in your brain, in your headspace, we cannot completely connect on. We can only reveal, or only so much can be understood of what the other person is thinking. And when you think you're there with them, you're only partially there with them. And the more you can try to connect, the more you can develop that. And yet, I've been married for 37 years. And do I think I know what Laurie's thinking all the time? I think I know. But it's the part that I like to think I know.
I said when I came I wasn't going to say anything about any literature, but the first book I ever connected with is a book called Childhood's End.
Childhood's End.
By Arthur C. Clarke.
Okay. He's
the guy who wrote 2001 that was made into the movie.
Oh, the movie, yeah.
Sci-fi writer, but that book deals with that in a science fiction sort of way. He I don't want to give it away.
That's okay.
He posits that we are only part of our evolution, that the next stage is able to communicate without language.
Sure. Yeah. Oh, that's given, I think.
Wouldn't that
Yeah.
be cool?
Oh, yeah. Wicked cool.
And some people would say, I don't want you to know what I'm thinking,
Yeah.
but
Oh, the beauty in knowing what you're thinking.
jeez.
Oh, yeah. That would be the total. I mean, we talked about vulnerability,
Yeah.
a little bit today, and we have in the past on here, and everybody would just be so real. Yeah. There'd be no hiding. There'd be no.
Well, and
Yeah.
we'd realized that all of the things that we fear, we all fear.
You're right. And the tremendous confidence that would come from that whatever I'm just totally there.
Yeah.
Totally
Yeah.
exposed.
Yeah.
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 And totally all right.
Totally all right. Yeah. This is a good thing.
Yeah, this is a good thing. Being alive is a good thing.
Yes.
And being human is a gift.
Mm-hmm.
Even though, it's a gift that doesn't always keep on working,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
even though it's a gift that
might be misunderstood.
Yeah, might be misunderstood. It's a brilliant gift.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we'll do this again, please.
I'd love to.
But I can't tell you, Maryli, what a great experience this has been. And just, when I first met you as a teacher, it's interesting. Again, we talked about the years and how they blend. You were not that much older, technically, at that point in time.
No.
And you were really one of the good ones. And your energy that you brought was just incredible. And it was a great family, in that high school. And I'm just so fortunate to have had, I wish I'd taken your speech class.
You didn't need it, Rick. You didn't need it. Lots of times young people would come in and say, this is my greatest fear.
Yeah.
Having to do this.
Yeah.
Listen, can I just...
Absolutely.
Can we?
Yeah, sure.
I just want to share something with you. I want to share that I also have this love of poetry.
Okay.
And I wrote this poem. I'm not going to read the whole thing. I wrote this poem for a reunion, a very intimate reunion of people I went to high school with.
Oh, yeah.
All women. We weren't all women, but this was with just the women,
Okay.
and just a few of them. 8 of us, I think there were. And
This was in Flint.
Yeah. Catholic school. There were 8 parishes.
Okay.
We went to St. John Vianney.
Yeah.
So they had lived in Flint or the surrounding areas and stayed there, and I
moved on.
And I had not been back with them in decades. I mean, I'd only seen some of them at graduation. But anyway, I started writing this poem. And the beginning of the poem has a different flavor, and sometime we'll talk about that. Okay. It's another thing that I'm passionate about, aging.
Yes.
And how cool it is.
How cool it is
to age.
Yeah. Let's embrace that.
Yeah, really. And so I took the word evolving, and then I took the fact that we as older women are kind of in the evening of our years. So I took evolving and took Eve loving and kind of played with those words and talked about how this is a kind of cool time in our lives, Okay, but then...
When did you write this?
21, right?
Okay. Oh, so recently.
Yeah. I signed it for them because they wanted it.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's see. Yes, we are not our youth-filled selves, obviously evolving, yet in many ways we are more worthy of praise. We can be our youth-aware selves, perched on the fragile branch of loss of all we think we know. We take a moment to breathe in us, here, now, in the beauty of a table shared, filled with our vibrant energies, honoring our lives together and apart. We can take a moment to honor life now, to be thankful and see ourselves as both evolving and Eve-loving, like birds looking out at a day's fading, looking out together at what we can be and what we will be, in part because of what we once shared daily without even knowing how it would make us alike forever.
Wow. And these were kids that you went to grade school?
And high school.
And high school, yeah. And
every day.
the formation that happens, especially in those middle school, my guest last week, was just talking about that, how formidable those years are and how we never walk away from those.
How can you?
How can you? Yeah, all of life, I guess, but those particularly ring true because it was so innocent.
Well, and every day.
Every day, yeah.
Every day.
Yeah.
And that silence of that half an hour of Mass every morning.
Mm-hmm. Oh, to buy back that half an hour, meaning to earn that half an hour or set aside that half an hour today. Wow, that's like an eternity.
I know.
Yeah. But how important to do it.
I know.
To find a place and a presence.
And I have to say, whenever I write a poem, I'm always amazed at where it ends. I always feel like somebody took my hand and moved the words.
Sure.
And that line, without even in part of, and here we are, what we're going to be is in part because of what we once shared daily
yeah.
without even knowing.
Yeah.
You didn't look at the person next to you, jab them in the ribs and think, you're part of me.
Yeah. And 30 years from now, you're going to have an imprint on me. Yeah.
And that's how I feel about life.
Yes.
Not just them.
Yeah.
But that it's all a part of us.
Right. Yeah. All the dots that just connect.
Yeah.
Bring us to where we are. Yeah.
Anyway, that's the way I like to remember it.
That's awesome. That is great. Yes. Yeah. Beautiful poem. Yes.
Oh, thanks, Rick.
So, if somebody wanted to connect with you, either an old student or someone who was encouraged by this, they could find you how?
I'm on Facebook.
Great.
If I don't, I have. We live in the same house we've always lived in.
Yeah.
They can contact you.
Yes.
They probably could contact Eric Varney, the principal of Morse High School.
Yeah.
We're in the phone book.
Yeah.
Well, there isn't a phone book anymore, is there?
They could Google your name and find out.
Oh, my goodness. There's so much because there is no other Maryli Tiemann.
Oh, yeah.
There is, I bet, another Rick Bisson.
There are, yes.
There is no other Maryli Tiemann because my name's spelled weird.
Your Maryli is spelled differently. And
both names.
does Tiemann always have two Ns?
No.
Probably not all the time, yes. Yeah,
so when I order a pizza, I say my name is Joe.
This is Joe Tiemann.
No, just Joe.
Just Joe.
Just Joe.
Well, you're not just Joe.
And you're not just Rick.
Well, thank you so much, Maryli, for the time and conversation.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's been a precious time.
Yes, it has.
Yeah.